Norse-themed game based on the Norse, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic kind of mythology. So we've got our 9 worlds, such worlds as Asgard, Midgard, Jotunheim, and so forth.
Yep.
And it's an area control game, really. So it's all about trying to control as many of the 9 worlds as possible and getting as many of your sort of armies onto the worlds as possible.
Right.
So you represent effectively one of the gods or main figures.
Cool.
So you've got Sutir is the fire god there.
Nice.
Andvari is a sort of dark elf. And you can play Odin, or Beowulf is the Midgard hero, and so forth. So they're represented by an avatar pawn. Now these are Arla Lewis chess pawns, but we're doing something very similar to this.
So there will be the combatants will be
scroll
similar to this,
like that, and stones which represent the armies.
Okay.
These are glass ones, but they'll be acrylic in the final version. So this is fairly close to what it'll look like. The artwork is as pretty much as you see.
And so the art's lovely on this. These are real sort of poof.
And Andre Snyder, who's here at the show as well, and yes, that's I met him at Essen when he was going around with his book of artwork, and I thought, this could work, so the idea is to try and take control. So you start the game with a sort of one of these little armies on your card here, which represents, if you like, the palace or the citadel of the god. You're on your world with an army as well. Okay. In the game, you're going to try and get as many of these things from your reserve onto the worlds as possible and try and take over as many. So the game is played in a number of rounds. We normally suggest 6 rounds for a sort of 75-minute game. Okay. 9 rounds is more like a couple of hours or so. And a 3-hour game, 3-turn game, you can get the gist of the game.
Just like real quick sort of.
Now, there are 3 scoring times in turn 3. You see it's a slightly different colour. 6 and 9. So at the end of those turns, you actually score. So you got your turn sequence on your card here. Yes. So we determine the player order. Which is done by who has the most stones on the worlds. Well, we're tied at the moment. Who controls the most worlds? We're still tied. So at the start of the game, you actually just go in number order. So in this game, it would be blue, then it would be red, then it would be orange. Right. But the order changes dependent on. So what it means is there's an advantage typically for going late in the order, and a disadvantage is going first. The first player will have the most stones, i.e. be winning. So it's a bit of a balancing. Okay. So it's mechanism. Do I go here? Do I go first? And you can manipulate that to an extent, but if you can go for it to control the most, the likelihood is then you'll be going earlier and be picked on by the others. Yeah, so it's kind of like a catch-up mechanic to a point. So exactly so you work out the player order, and then in player order you spend action points, which we record on this little track here. Yep. So in a 3-player game, which we set up here, we would have 8 action points. Okay. 7 if we lose control of our home world. Right. Okay. So we'll be on 8 each. So we'll be there, and then as I take my actions, you can use it as a track. You can just quickly add it up in your head. Or this is a way. Particularly later in the games, as things tend to become a little bit more analytical, you say, well, I'll do that and I'll do that. Okay. Now what are we going to do? So you think about it a bit. In a larger number of player games, as in 4, 5 and 6, we compensate the first and even the second player by giving them an extra point or 2. Okay. To again, similar balancing because they're a little bit to draw back and things. So here we have the setup. You've got your points, so then you spend them as per a little menu which we've got in the middle here. Yep. So moving a stone from your reserve into your summoning it into existence, as it were. Yes. Is 1 point. Transferring it to where your avatar is a point. Moving a stone between worlds just costs a point. Moving your avatar costs a point. Okay. It also costs a point to bring a banished stone back from the underworld, from Helheim. Okay, so you resurrect him. And they're minus points there, whereas these are zeros and these are 1 point and worth 2, a victory point. So you kind of like an engine. You're almost. So you think, well, do I get that back to So then 2 points. For 2 points, you can bring a stone onto a world that you're not on. Okay. And for 2 points, you can also move another player's avatar. Right. And you can move another player's stone. Okay. However, if they're present on the world, that actually costs 3. Right. So you can protect your own stones by being on the world. So you get on there. At least it's going to cost them heavily to be able to mess with you. If you're present and they're not, that'll go down to 1. Yeah. So the avatars have where they are have quite. They're modifying. The game. and then for 3 points you can banish a stone to Helheim. That's also modified by the avatars. So you do all that. So effectively, it might well be that you've brought some of these stones onto the board. You've got to move them onto a world and move things around a bit. And then we have what we call the Battles and World Powers phase.
Yep.
Okay. So in the Battles and World Powers phase, you look at a world to see whether or not there are more than 5 stones in a world.
Yep.
Yeah? If there are more than 5 stones in a world, a battle will occur
right.
to reduce the stones down to 5.
Okay.
And the way we work the battle out is the stones are removed in player order.
Right.
So we look down the track, well, there's no blue stones there. There's an orange stone, take that off.
All right.
We've now reduced our stones to 5. Red controls the world.
Right.
And what we do is we show that by moving that to there.
Right.
That means that he's in control of that world, and that world power, which we'll come to in a moment, will activate for this turn. Regardless of what happens to the stones now, that will happen.
He's now locked in, isn't he? Yeah.
And if that stone's removed by other powers and other things, we leave it there anyway, and we've got another marker that we put under there to say it's a dead stone, but it's just saying who's got control of that world. Okay, so. So that's the battle phase. That battle happens, by the way, even if all those stones are your own.
So
the Vikings
you could
get
essentially,
themselves, because you'll overstack a world. You may decide to do that because you really want to have this world, but you may well have to sacrifice.
You're going to have to pay the cost for it.
Okay.
So I suppose there's a tactic there as well. I could look ahead, see the turn order, and I could sneak one of my units in to tip it over the balance, and then cause theirs to go.
Now, and if a stone was lost in the purpose of a battle.
Yep.
So let's actually have this situation. Orange comes off. We've still got more than 5, so red comes off.
Yeah.
Now we're down to that. So red has won. That's destroyed. But this is the victorious dead.
Right.
And so the Valkyries take it to Valhalla.
Wait, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
As they would do. Only the first stone of the victorious side, though, goes to prevent you sort of overstocking a world, just to try and
just
sort of
fill
the points you're going to get from this. So we'll come to the Valhalla stone in a moment. So with world powers, so this works out who controls the world powers. They only activate if there are 5 stones there. So there are 9 worlds. There are 9 powers. So they're summarised here. So the Asgard power it's got a little shield here.
Yep.
And that's protect.
Okay.
So it might neither be affected by nor use any world powers this turn. So if you control Asgard, and you control another world, you have to, or more than one world, you have to choose. Do I take the immunity of Asgard, which means I'm immune from all the world powers?
Cool.
But I can't.
But then I can't use enemy. Yeah.
And that's the balancing again there. Then we've got retrieve, which is the horn here, and that allows you to bring a stone back from Helheim.
Okay.
And drop it on the board. It doesn't have to be your own, but generally it will be your own.
You're kind of going to go.
And to affect the balance of power. If there aren't any stones there, you get to take extra stones onto your card.
Okay.
There's the move power of Alfheim, so you get to move 2 stones. They don't have to be your own.
Right.
Or 1 stone twice.
Okay.
Steel. So with the steel power, you take a stone and replace somebody else's stone like that.
Right.
Then we've got the exchange, which means you can exchange a stone of your colour with any other stone on any of the other worlds, regardless of how far away they are.
Okay.
Add a stone onto
just
the board.
One more in.
Destroy is bang, back into reserve, or 2 stones back to their card.
Okay.
And they can be different stones, 2 different colours
so
or whatever.
2 different factions or something.
Spend, you get to spend 2 action points, as if you've got 2 extras.
Right.
And finally, the banish is banish the stone to Helheim.
Okay.
So, effectively, what you're trying to do in the game is to take control of worlds, so that when the scoring phase comes, you will score for them anyway.
Yeah.
And also take control of worlds to use the world powers.
To then use that to, again, maybe move stuff around. Or,
exactly. And because the scoring phase happens after the world powers phase, the world powers can change who controls a world.
Yeah.
So I might control this for the actual world power phase, but then as a result of the world
they're doing
powers,
a move or a banish or something, they could reduce that down and leave me in the power of it.
That will be often what you're trying to do, to manipulate the world powers to do that. the Valhalla stones come back in the Valhalla phase just after the World Powers, and they go back to the controlling player's home world and score you 2 points.
Cool.
So you can sometimes get a few extra bonus points by winning battles, which is fairly thematic for Viking type things.
Got a lot of Viking stuff.
So scoring, you get a point for every stone that's here, 2 points for every stone that's there, 3 points for any world that you dispute control of. 5 points if you've got control of the world. -1 minus 2 for stones that are
anyone's in there.
And one point for every world that you are on, whether you controlled it or not. Okay, so that allows a certain sort of dispersal strategy that if I can't control the world, but I can get a stone on it, and at least I'll get a point.
At least I'm going to get something from it.
And that's 9 worlds basically.
Wow. So that strikes me. There's probably quite a bit. You can get a lot of thinking going on there.
It's a game where. In the play as we've done play testing, we've played games from 45 minutes to an hour or so for the 6-turn game. 9-turn game does tend to go more like 2 hours or so, but over analytical players it can go more. When we did a demo of this at Thirsty Meeples back in February, and that game had 3 very analytical players and me, I think. And I just do my turn, right, done.
And then they went,
right, let's think about this. And it went on for about 3 hours, but actually they all enjoyed it.
Okay, well, yeah.
So, but I think if you've got one very analytical player and the others don't get on with that style of play,
that could be problematic.
But that's a matter of
that's the hobby we're in.
That's exactly it. But no, there's a lot. There is a lot. It's fairly relatively simple.
Yes, but it's all more to do with the planning. What it's all going to give you, how you're going to get the maximum payout of what you're doing.
Once you know the game, you can often see, you can read the board and say, right. So if I do that on that world, that on that world, that'll give me those world powers. Then I know what I'm going to do with those world powers. So hopefully I can end up with, say, 3 worlds to come to the scoring phase. Those are the 2 guys who've got only 2 worlds each, so I'm ahead there and so on. That's the idea.
Well, excellent stuff. So there's a it's a bit departure from what you've done
with Ticktail,
so you're a whole new sort of thing there, and interesting, and I can't wait to see how it goes. And Essen, you say there's
hopefully
this will be it.
We actually placed the order with Ludafactory.
Fine, so it's happening there.
So it's happening. We've already had half the money, so it's going to happen. Whatever happens.
Cool, fantastic stuff. Well, I wish you well with the project. And I look forward to seeing Essen. And it'll be good stuff.
Okay,
thank you for taking the time out, Richard. And have a great expo.
Yes.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Cheers.